Ouya, ba 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 dooya, ouya. Ooh, it's an ouya.
Hey, Bajo, have you seen the Vita? We need it for the Severed review.
The what?
The Vita. Small, handheld Sony gaming device with the...
Oh, the Vita. Hex, that belongs in a museum, but I will go and get it.
Thanks.
Owie, owie, ow. Hex, I did it.
Well, that's great, but this is a PSP.
I'm off. It's fun to joke about the Vita not having any games, but we're actually both pretty sad about it. The lack of support for this device over its lifespan leaves little hope for a successor. And as much as I like what Nintendo do with their handhelds, I loved what Sony were doing with this one. I just want big, juicy, meaty games on the Vita, Hex.
I feel those days may be over, Bajo, but before the Vita disappears into the ether, you may want to have one last slash with Severed.
The game begins with Sasha appearing to enter her ransacked home. After checking your appearance in a mirror, you notice you're missing an arm, and also there's a freaking scary demon behind you.
The demon explains that your parents and brother have been taken by this world to be devoured. You're handed a sword, then after a fun flashback tutorial section, you venture into the wilds to fight grotesque beasts and explore perilous dungeons.
The best way to describe this game is it's kind of like Infinity Blade meets Legend of Grimrock with a bit of Fruit Ninja thrown in. Combat is all about swiping on the front touchscreen with short, fast swipes for small damage and long ones for bigger hits.
However, each enemy is unique. You definitely won't be able to just spam your way through fights. Some will block attacks from certain directions with armor, others will slowly grow large and then attack, and others will have weak spots to hit.
I enjoyed fighting these creatures, Hex, but it's when you get a whole bunch surrounding you and you have to fight them all at once that things get a bit trickier. You need to prioritize targets and switch between them, watching for any attacks that you might be able to counter. Eventually, you get a blind ability, which helps with crowd control, and you soon learn all the attack patterns of enemies, which helps to take out the weaker ones quickly. I like that everything you can see makes sense. It's easy to see when you need to switch targets, when you need to counter, or when you've messed up.
Yeah, it's all fairly straightforward. There's nothing in the combat that's too taxing on the brain, and the enemies are varied enough to keep things interesting. As you attack, you'll also build a focus meter. When full, it allows you to finish off enemies by severing their body parts. You have to be quick about it, and it soon becomes quite important because you use these parts to upgrade Sasha'S abilities.
Those upgrades really matter too. And once you start making progress with those upgrades and finding bits of gear, it all gets a bit obsessive.
Yeah, it's the dungeon crawling that really hooks you.
Yeah, hallways full of monsters, puzzles, switches, and blocked doors. You'll spend a fair bit of time backtracking, solving secrets, and figuring out these tricky puzzles as you fight your way through these halls. Some puzzles were really obvious, like just clicking a square in a wall, but then there are others where I swear I was doing the right thing, but I just could not figure it out.
Yeah, I found the dungeon design to be quite confusing. I got stuck quite a bit.
Yeah, me too, especially with those doors that only open during the day or night. The only way to change the time of day is by walking up to these big gongs and swiping them and then walking back. The dungeons are designed like this on purpose, but if you miss a door somewhere or get turned around, it can be a bit frustrating. Especially if you're playing in short bursts.
Yeah, it is super satisfying though when you complete a dungeon run, you get a whole bunch of upgrades and gear. The step out into the open wild is always welcome too, and the art style is quite lovely with strong oranges and purples.
I like the art style too. I especially liked the monster design in the mountain zone. They were much harder to fight, plus the zone had these gross, weird monsters to walk through. But this game doesn't move like an FPS. It kind of fades between scenes. I didn't really mind that, but it just was a bit odd.
Yeah, you do get used to it after a while, but it was kind of off-putting at first. It just kind of messed with my brain a bit.
I guess the question is, why is it designed like this to load each scene individually? The Vita could certainly handle it if it was constant motion. We're just guessing, but it does make me think that perhaps it was designed this way with a future mobile release in mind. In fact, Hex, I think this would actually play much better on a mobile device because the Vita's quite awkward to hold in one hand.
Yeah, I actually had to play this on a flat table to be effective with those super fast swipes. You know, I really wanted to love this Barjo, but in the end I just got too confused and lost and turned around playing this that I just found it frustrating. So I'm giving it 2.5 out of 5.
Yeah, I was expecting a bit more from it, to be honest, but I did enjoy the combat and the game's dark themes, and it's quite inexpensive, so I'm going to give it 3 stars.